Hey everyone. I know it's election day and we're all probably feeling a little anxious and distracted. But before you refresh those election results for the 100th time, let's take a deep dive into some of the financial stories swirling around this whole thing.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, we've got this snapshot of today's news and financial happenings, including that Forbes X pre-election survey that everyone's been talking about.
Yeah, that one was a real nail biter, wasn't it?
It really was. But you know what we're going to do? We're going to go beyond the headlines today. We're going to uncover some financial details, stuff that might surprise you.
Ooh, I love a good surprise.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so get this. Did you know that Forbes actually did some serious detective work and uncovered this hidden loan that Trump took out right after the 2016 election?
Wow, really? I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah. So imagine this. Trump just won the election, but his campaign, kind of blew through a lot more cash than they expected.
Wow, campaigns are expensive.
And on top of that, he still had that $25 million settlement he had to pay out for that Trump University lawsuit. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, I remember that whole thing.
So basically, he needed cash, and he needed it fast.
Makes sense.
But here's the thing. His main lender at the time, Deutsche Bank, they had all these rules about how much liquid cash he had to have on hand.
Ah, so he was kind of stuck?
Exactly. He was in a bind. He sold off some properties, but it still wasn't enough. So that's where this $25 million loan from Ladder Capital comes in.
Ladder Capital, I don't think I've heard of them.
Yeah, they're not as well known as like a Deutsche Bank.
Yeah.
Anyway, this loan was apparently arranged by Jack Weisselberg.
Weisselberg, wait, isn't that?
Yeah, he's the son of Alan Weisselberg, Trump's longtime financial advisor.
Okay, now that is interesting.
Right. And here's the biggest shocker. This loan was totally missing from Trump's financial disclosure reports.
You're kidding. Those are supposed to be like, completely transparent.
I know, right? It's kind of crazy.
So is he in any trouble for this?
Well, legally,
Mm.
no, because the statute of limitations, that whole time limit thing.
Right.
But it definitely raises some eyebrows, Like, what else might we not know about?
Yeah, it makes you think.
It really highlights how complex these financial dealings can be, Yeah. And how hard it is to actually track money, even when we're talking about a president.
It's not as simple as we think it is, huh?
Not at all. And you know what? This isn't just about one loan. This is about a bigger issue about accountability and really needing to scrutinize, the financial activities of people in power.
Especially when they're at the highest levels of government.
Exactly. So let's move on from hidden loans for a sec. Let's talk about how this election is playing out in a completely different arena, the stock market.
Oh, yeah. That's always interesting to watch.
Like, did you see NVIDIA briefly became the world's most valuable company, like even overtaking Apple for a hot second?
I did see that, yeah. It's kind of crazy how much power AI has right now. Certain sectors just seem to thrive no matter what's happening politically.
It's true. And then there's Bitcoin. Bernstein analysts are saying it could hit $200,000 by 2025.
Seriously. That's a
Yeah.
huge jump.
I know, right? Imagine if that actually
It
happened.
would be insane. And speaking of riding high, we can't forget about Jared Kushner. His Saudi-backed investment firm is doing amazingly well. He's practically on the verge of becoming a billionaire himself.
It's wild, right? Elections have this ripple effect across the entire financial world, from tech stocks to private equity.
Yeah, whether you're invested in those markets or not, the outcomes can still impact you in ways you might not even realize.
It's mind-blowing how connected everything is, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Politics and finance, they're like two sides of the same coin.
Definitely makes you think about the influence of money on politics, and vice versa.
Okay, before we get too deep into that, we need to address the big elephant in the room,
Oh, you mean?
election anxiety. It's everywhere today.
Can you blame anyone, though? The APA, the American Psychiatric Association, they did this poll, and it turns out 43% of Americans are feeling more anxious now than they were last year.
It's a lot of people.
It is, and it's not just some fleeting feeling either. This level of anxiety can have serious consequences for our mental and physical health.
No kidding. Even Forbes is giving advice to managers on how to deal with this whole thing in the workplace.
Really? What are they saying?
Well, things like acknowledging employees' anxieties, encouraging open dialogue, making sure everyone has time to vote. It's like we need a whole new rule book for election day at work.
I guess so. It just shows how deeply this election is impacting us, It's seeping into every aspect of our lives, even our jobs.
And it's not just the big picture stuff either. There are practical things to worry about too, like whether your state even requires employers to give you paid time off to vote.
You know what? You're right. I hadn't even thought about that.
It's one of those things that you just kind of assume, but it's not a guarantee everywhere.
Wow, that's actually really important to know.
It is. And, for those of us feeling totally overwhelmed, Remember those good old therapist-approved coping mechanisms?
Oh, yeah, like what?
Things like journaling, taking a walk, putting your phone down, anything to disconnect for a bit.
Those are always good ideas no matter what's going on.
It's exactly.
Yeah.
This is about more than just politics. It's about taking care of ourselves and our mental well-being.
I agree. So what's next?
Well, we're just getting started. We're about to dive into some seriously interesting stuff about billionaire donors and the impact they're having on this whole election. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Before we started talking about election anxiety, we were in the middle of something pretty interesting.
We were talking about the stock market, right?
Right.
And how crazy it's been lately.
Yeah, but even bigger than that, let's talk about those billionaire donors, the ones who are basically shaping this whole election.
Oh, yeah, those guys. It's no secret that this is on track to be the most expensive election in U.S. history.
And when we say expensive, we're talking almost $16 billion. Like, that's with a B.
It's mind-boggling, isn't it? I can't even wrap my head around that kind of money.
It's hard to imagine. And the thing is, Forbes has been tracking all these mega donors. It turns out there are at least 135 billionaires who have poured money into this election cycle.
Whoa, 135, that's a lot of billionaires.
It is. And it really makes you wonder what kind of influence that much money buys you.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the total amount, it's also where it's coming from and what those donors are hoping to achieve.
Exactly. So check this out. Harris actually has the support of 83 billionaire donors.
Oh, really? That's more than Trump.
Yeah, he's got 52 backing him. So you can see there's this whole mix of interests and ideologies all trying to have their say.
It's like a giant tug of war, isn't it?
It kind of is. And let's not forget about those third-party candidates, Even though they're not likely to win, they can still shake things up, especially in a tight race like this one.
That's true. Especially when you look at the polls. Trump and Harris are neck and neck. It's crazy.
Those few percentage points that go to a third-party candidate could totally be decisive.
Yeah, every vote really does count. It's kind of intense.
It is. So we've talked about hidden loans, the wild world of the stock market, election anxiety, and these billionaire donors. What else is there?
Well, we can't forget about the actual policies that are up for grabs,
Yeah.
right? These have real-world consequences for people.
That's right. Like, the Biden administration has been pushing for some pretty big changes in the workplace. Things like banning non-compete agreements and raising the salary threshold for overtime pay.
Yeah, those are big wins for workers. But here's the thing. Regardless of who wins today, both of those policies are facing legal challenges.
Oh, really? So they might not even happen.
It's a possibility. Which just goes to show that winning an election is only half the battle. Actually getting stuff done is a whole other story.
So what does facing legal challenges even mean?
Basically, it means someone, usually a group or an organization, has filed a lawsuit saying that the policy is unconstitutional or breaks the law in some way.
And then what happens?
Well, then it goes to court,
Mhm.
and the judges decide whether the policy can stay as it is, or if it needs to be changed or even completely thrown out.
Wow. So it's a long and complicated process.
It really is. And speaking of complicated, we can't ignore the whole misinformation thing. It seems like it's gotten even worse this election cycle.
Yeah, it's scary how easily misinformation can spread.
Well, Trump and his supporters have been pushing these claims about election irregularities, especially in Pennsylvania, since it's such a crucial swing state.
Oh, I've seen some of those claims floating around.
The good news is that Forbes has been fact-checking a lot of this stuff and setting the record straight.
That's good to hear because misinformation can really mess with people's heads and affect how they vote.
Absolutely. It's more important than ever to be a critical thinker, and not just believe everything you see online.
So we've talked about how this election is impacting the markets, the world of billionaires, our workplaces, and even our own mental health. But what does it all mean for the average person?
That's the question, isn't it? Even if you're not a billionaire or a Wall Street big shot, this election still matters for your everyday life.
It affects your job, your investments, your sense of security, even your mental well-being, as we talked about.
And it's not just about who wins. It's about the whole system.
Mm.
We're getting a glimpse into how money influences politics, how misinformation spreads, how policies can get tied up in legal battles. It's a lot to take in.
It really makes you think about how our democracy actually works, behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's a reminder that being an informed citizen is more important than ever. And that goes beyond just voting. It's about staying engaged, asking questions, holding our leaders accountable. It's crazy to think we've covered so much ground today, from secret loans to billionaire donors to, just the general anxiety of election day.
It really does feel like we've gone down a bunch of different rabbit holes.
But that's kind of the point of these deep dives, right? We try to go beyond the surface, connect the dots and make sense of it all.
I like that. Connecting the dots. It's not always easy, though.
No, it's not.
Hmm.
Especially with something as complex as an election. You've got money, politics, misinformation. It all gets tangled up together.
And it affects everyone in different ways, whether we realize it or not.
Exactly. So let's bring it back to that snapshot of news and financial happenings that we started with.
Okay.
We've talked about it a lot today. But it's really just a glimpse, into this whole system of money, politics, and well-being.
It really makes you wonder, where do we go from here?
Yeah, I mean, with all this stuff going on with billionaire donors and crazy market swings and people feeling anxious, are we at some kind of turning point?
It's a good question. And I don't think there's an easy answer.
No, probably not. But I think a big part of it is, us staying curious, staying informed, maybe even doing our own deep dives into the things that matter to us.
Yeah, I agree. The more we understand, the better equipped we are to actually make a difference.
Exactly. So that's it for this Election Day Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back soon with more deep dives into the things that are shaping our world.
Until then, stay curious, everyone.
And try to stay calm. We'll get through this.